for coming. My name is Mike Tanner. I'm the news director at Watertown Radio, host of What's Up every morning at 8:15. Appreciate you being here. Our guests, you can see by the placards in front, Senator Glen Vilhauer, District 5, Representative Matt Roby, District 5, Representative Kent Roe, District 4, State Senator Stephanie Sauder, District 4, Representative Dylan Jordan, District 4. We're going to pass out some sheets of paper and pens. If you have a specific question that you'd like asked, write it down. They'll bring the question up to me and I'll read it and we'll get it to our delegate here this morning. I would ask the delegates, since we have a limited amount of time, try and be concise and tight with your comments so we can cover as much ground as possible. Try and limit it to maybe a minute or a minute and a half. We'll let each of you respond, and away we go this morning. And I'll get it started here as we pass out the sheets of paper and the pens. We'll start off with one of the topics that was talked about a lot during the session, data centers. And Governor Roden likes to frequently use the phrase, South Dakota is open for opportunity, open for business. Well, that might not apply to data centers. Representative Melhoff, I believe, introduced a bill that would have given data centers a 50-year sales tax exemption. That was defeated. Later on, the debate turned to a data center citizens bill of rights, which you guys liked more than the sales tax exemption. We'll start with you, Senator Vilhauer. Talk to me about the data center issue and your thoughts on how the legislation turned out in here.
I'll just say from the very beginning, I've been a supporter of data centers. I think there's a world of difference between the carbon pipeline that was proposed a couple years ago and eventually died last year with the eminent domain bill that was passed. I'm a supporter. I feel like we're turning our back on some prime opportunities. I think the legislation that was crafted, and I'll look down and give Representative Roe a lot of credit for the bill which he introduced, not passed. And the next bill that came before us that was defeated in the Senate, would have actually expanded a program already in place that we could not get expanded to data centers. So I think we're missing a prime opportunity there as far as property tax revenue that could have been generated, sales tax revenue that could have been generated for the state and the location where they would have been built. So the Bill of Rights, I supported actually a couple different bills, as I recall, that would have put some rights in place as far as protection against water usage, against electrical costs, etc. But in general, I was disappointed that we cannot move the whole concept of data centers any further along than we did.
Appreciate that, Glenn. Representative Roby.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everybody for coming. One thing that I think there's pretty broad consensus on, and if you look at the votes on the bills that passed on related to data centers, is that whether or not they come here, whether or not we give them tax breaks or not, like other states have, I think there's pretty broad consensus that we want to make sure that they're paying their own freight, that they're not going to, to the extent possible, they're not going to pass on rising electricity costs to current users, that they're not going to jeopardize water resources, and that we're going to preserve the ability of local governments to say whether or not, and local citizens to say whether or not they want them in their area. And so that was a bill that received broad support in the legislature and passed, and I expect the governor will sign. Now, where of course we're divided is on whether or not we want to be more competitive in terms of attracting these things here. There are 40 states in our country that do some sort of a program to to account for the cost that these data centers, and I'm speaking here right before the expert on data centers, but these data centers have to spend $400 million every 4 years to replace their equipment, and so certain states have tax breaks that allow that to become feasible for them to locate there. Now, there are places that things are reversing course, and so this year we weren't able to get anything, weren't able to reach consensus. The bill that they kind of worked on in the Senate failed, and Kent's bill failed in Senate or House State Affairs. So.
Representative Roe, the expert, Matt says, your thoughts on the data center legislation that came out of here?
Sure, and Matt, thanks for reminding me my bill failed in State Affairs. Yeah, Kent Roe, District 4, thank you all for coming. The data center thing developed for me in immediately after session this year in April. I'm quite interested in technology and the application of artificial intelligence and also the use of data centers nationwide. South Dakota is in a unique spot here. We have a high tax on technology in this state, and it's not because of the percentage rate, it's because of the volume of dollars that we're talking about. To bring it home, every neighboring state has tax loads that are much lower than South Dakota's are. That's why we're being overlooked. We're missing the opportunity of building this type of infrastructure in our own state simply based on tax load. That's the bottom line. If you look at North Dakota, I think they're north of 4 gigawatts of data center load there right now. That would equivalent to about $100 million in sales tax we're not getting every year here in South Dakota. So if you spool that into the appropriations process, I'm sure Glenn would have liked another $100 million for the state to pay for our infrastructure, pay for our schools, pay for our nursing home help, pay for our state workers. I won't bore you to tears with the data center numbers, but just suffice it to say we're foregoing probably at least $20 million a year in uncollected taxes, and we're giving that money to our neighboring states, thankfully. Minnesota, Nebraska, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana. Every state that touches South Dakota has a tax load that's significantly less than we're dealing with here. So what my legislation did, just sought to level the playing field with all of our neighboring states and create an environment where at least we would get a look. Right now, we're seeing these things just go everywhere but here.
Appreciate it, Representative Roe. Steph, your thoughts on the data center legislation?
Yes, thank you, and first of all, thank you for allowing us to be here today and to speak in front of you. So the data centers, I concur with what Glenn, Matt, and Kent said before me, and I also want to add, not only did I look at the revenue side of it, but what really concerned me is with the data centers and not the lack of encouragement that brought them to South Dakota. First of all, that was on some misinformation or information that didn't apply. A lot of those negative thoughts were based on information that doesn't apply to South Dakota. But what really bothers me about them not being here is we are in competition with China. And I am not a fearmonger. I'm not going to say, scare everybody in there. But the fact is, China wants these data centers. And we can't sell our land to foreign buyers. Why would we want to put our personal data in China? Why would we want to do that? That's what scares me. And so if we were to be able to keep these data centers in the United States, in South Dakota, I trust South Dakota, that would alleviate a lot of my worries. They can talk about the revenue all they want to, which is a very good thing too, but for me, it was the national security issue that really, really drove me to support these data centers.
Dylan, your thoughts on the data center legislation?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you everyone for coming and being a part of the process, and hopefully put all of us in the hot seat, because that's what your job is supposed to be. And thank you for moderating. I'm not against data centers coming if they go through the local process, which the ones around here were willing to do, but I am against giving them tax exemptions. So I'm glad we passed a bill to help with electric and water rates and all that stuff, even though the one that proposed in Dual County didn't use as much water as some people claimed. But I'm against giving them tax exemptions, so I'm pleased with how the session turned out as far as that.
Right. Okay, thank you, Representative Jordan. We're going to start with you, Dylan, on this next question, and then we'll work our way back this way. A lot of talk about how to provide property tax relief. I think the summer study committee last year came up with like 20 some odd recommendations. There were a lot of different bills that were introduced and debated out in Pier. Ultimately, the one that a couple of bills that passed and were signed. The one, and it gets a little complicated here, right now South Dakota state sales tax is 4.2%. It'll sunset, and next July, it'll go up to 4.5%. So there's a 0.3% increase in the state sales tax next year. A portion of that money would be used for property tax relief, along with about $56 million from reserve funds that would be stuck into an account to buy down property taxes as well. What are your thoughts on the legislation that came out of here in regard to property tax relief?
Well, I'm glad there's some property tax relief, but you notice everyone says property tax relief, not tax relief. So what you're doing is you're saving on property taxes and you're paying more at Walmart. So we tried 3 times to stop the sunset from raising the sales tax. So that's why I voted for, I believe it was 245 to make it go towards that. And then the governor's bill, I believe it was Senate Bill 96, what that did was make it so counties could add an extra penny sales tax. So all we did was raise sales tax to pay for property tax, which I'm against, but I hope it helps with property taxes going forward, because in 3 counties in District 4, I know people that have showed me their receipts and their property taxes have doubled or tripled in the last 10 years. So I hope it provides them with some relief, but I think we need to do better. This year for the G bill that I voted no on, our state spending increased by 80 million this year. And I know they'll say property taxes is county level, but that's the trend we're going towards. So we need to address the spending so we can actually lower taxes instead of shifting them.
Stephanie, what do you hear about property tax concerns down in your area, down in Hamlin County, and what the final product was?
Yep, to be very honest though, a lot of them aren't visiting with me about that. They have other concerns. They're more like the ag taxes or money for the schools and stuff like that. So as far as the owner occupied taxes, I'm not having a lot of conversations with that. As far as the Senate Bill 245, which would give that additional 0.5 or the 0.3 money back to property taxes, I did not vote for that. And one of the reasons was, the main reason was, we don't have to do anything about that this year, because that doesn't come off until next year in 27. So we had one more year to discuss this. There were a lot of things they were trying to get rammed through, and quick, we got this money, let's put this in, and all of a sudden it was like a shell game, and which one do we choose? You know, I didn't want to be a part of that type of legislation. Senate Bill 96, which was allowing the counties to go up to a half a penny, not a whole percent, but 0.5%. I did vote for that. That is a local issue. If the locals want to decide to do that, we gave them that tool to do that. And I would rather have that go back and let the local people decide that. It has to be a vote of the people. The commissioners just can't say, oh, let's do this. No, there's processes in place. So I wasn't 100% confident about that one, but I did think, okay, let the locals decide on that. So out of the 20-some bills that were talked about, I don't know if any one of them were really the right answer, but this is what we've got.
Representative Roe?
I'd say 5-6 weeks ago, I started working with Mike Weisgram, Representative Weisgram, and Representative Shizmowski on our House Bill 1308, which died, again, to Matt's point, failed on the floor. So if you take 96 and 245, those were the 2 bills that passed. I like 96. I had some heartburn with 245. 96, again, to Steph's point, just turns that opportunity over to the counties to pick up some sales tax and to offset some property tax. And I think that's a fine idea. I think gives the counties a little more bite in the game, and they can take that money and do with as they see fit, because property taxes stay local. I didn't like 245 because it didn't give any type of an acknowledgement to what we call the big 3. Again, our teachers, county workers, and care service providers. So I voted against it just based on that. But on the flip side, I was asked to attend the governor's signing of both 96 and 245 because working with the governor's office and with some senators, we were able to bring 96 and 245, which pretty much was a division of 1308, at least in my estimation. So again, 96, good bill. Turns that opportunity over to the counties to provide some direct tax relief that they can claim. 245 I didn't like because it just simply failed to fund any of the big three. And those are the important things to me. Those are the people that are going to be out pushing snow this weekend, the people that are taking care of our kids when they're in the public schools, and again, your nursing home workers, the people that are taking care of probably our most vulnerable. So again, I voted against 245 and I voted for 96.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, this property tax discussion has really taken some twists and turns over the last couple of years. I also supported Senate Bill 96, and giving counties the option. You know, the idea was that there are certain counties in our state that have been hit particularly hard in the last 5 or 6 years with rising owner-occupied property taxes. And so I like the idea of them being able to make that decision on their own, whether or not it makes sense to raise that sales tax, to lower property taxes, particularly in the Black Hills. I mean, they have such a high tourist count out there that I think there's a couple of counties that are really going to benefit from their residents not paying. I mean, it's really going to be a lot of that tax is going to be shouldered by folks visiting from out of state. On 245, so we took up Senate Bill 96 before 245, and I was really torn. I was home for the weekend and I was looking at, in Kiden County, it's estimated, and I see one of our county commissioners back there at least, and I know he fought a lot of years for a county sales tax, and so I'm not sure if he likes this or not, because this is not maybe exactly what he was hoping for, but because it's going only to property tax relief. But I took a look at Kiden County. If Kiden County does adopt this, it'll completely the estimate is it'll completely wipe out the county portion on our property tax bills. And I took a look at my own personal property tax bill. It will go down by 20 to 25, 30% almost. And so on Monday, we had to vote on 245, and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, if Kiden County does this, 30% seems like a plenty of property tax relief. But get to the floor on Monday, and we did try to propose an amendment to try to hold back some of that money, just because of the extensive relief that 96 would provide if counties adopt it. We tried to propose an amendment that would hold some of that the increase back to help pay our teachers and our healthcare providers and our state employees. That failed. I ultimately did support 245, really for the reason that it's not guaranteed that counties are going to do this. This discussion's been going on 3 or 4 years, and I'm hopeful that the passage of 245, along with that county sales tax option, will really put this issue to bed. I mean, the counties that choose to adopt it, their property taxes are going to fall well below where inflation would have led property taxes, and so I really ended up supporting it just to finally put this issue to bed so we can move on to discuss other issues as a state.
Glenn?
I will say this, whether you like the legislation that was passed this session or not, I really feel like we will see a noticeable change in our property taxes. Now, I'd like to dissect the two bills a little bit from my standpoint. Senate Bill 96 would provide the counties the option of the half-cent extra sales tax. And I look at Commissioner Gable back there, how many years he tried to fight this in the legislature or implement this for our own jail that we're now building. So I supported that. And the information I got from the Bureau of Finance and Management that Representative Roby alluded to, it would have made about a 22% difference or reduction in the owner-occupied tax on your tax bill. So I did definitely support that. Senate Bill 245, I ultimately voted against. The reason being, I'm an appropriator. And what that means is if 245, when the sunset goes off the sales tax, we're looking at about $110 million revenue from that sunset going off. So if that sunset is going to go off, I have a hard time as an appropriator walking away from $110 million in state revenue when that would go a long ways to providing for our big three. Each 1% of our big three that we keep alluding to is about $25 million. So $110 million would have given us some pretty nice dollars to work with relative to our big three. I voted against it, had a couple other concerns about it. I didn't like the utilization of $56 million transfer out of our budget reserves to kickstart this. So I was concerned about that. I've got some concerns about the administration of this. The Department of Revenue is going to be the party administering this. I've got some reservations about this. And also, one of the things that caused me pause as well is that this benefit is going to be seen most by those that have higher valued properties will see the greatest benefit from this. So, but again, at the end of the day, I think we probably have achieved some sales tax relief, and it would be nice going back to Pier next year, not having every other bill be something to do with sales tax, or I'm sorry, property tax.
Out of fairness here, I want to read this question from the audience, and probably covers the ground we already have here. They write, what's up with the idea of lowering property taxes and passing them on to people who don't own property via an increase of the sales tax? It sounds like more of a tax increase. So if I'm from Webster or Millbank or Sisseton or Clark, and I'm coming to Watertown and I shop, and the sales tax is 0.3% higher, am I in essence helping lower the property taxes for a resident of Cottington County when I don't even live there? And is that fair? And maybe Matt, we'll start with you on that one.
That's a great question. The answer is yes, to your first question. To the second, because it's true, anybody that visits Watertown is going to pay sales tax, and the part of that sales tax is now going to go to provide property tax relief. Now, the counter, the other side of that coin, though, is that is really already true, and not on the property tax side. But when I go to Sioux Falls, my sales tax that the shopping that I do in Sioux Falls, the spending that I might do in Sioux Falls, is going to go towards Sioux Falls city government. And there's plenty of things that the Sioux Falls city government does for folks that live in Sioux Falls that don't benefit me. And so that's just already built into the nature of our system. If I go to any other jurisdiction in this country, whatever their tax rate is, I'm paying it, and I'm helping support their local services that I don't benefit from. So whether or not it's fair, one thing about sales tax, it is regressive. It is true, but the piece that doesn't always get talked about is that our federal tax system is progressive, and approximately 40 to 50% of our country doesn't pay federal income tax. And so the folks that are paying some sales tax in South Dakota, a lot of the folks that are kind of hurt at the margins in terms of that sales tax already are not paying federal income tax. And so I'm able to sleep a little better with that in mind.
Anybody else want to tackle this one? Dylan, we'll go to you, and then Glenn will follow. Dylan.
Yeah, this just follows up with my point that it was not a tax cut. It was just putting it from one hand and putting it into another. So until we address the spending, we won't be able to do it. And that's why I voted against 96, because that is an extra sales tax that the county's in, and almost all of them will vote it in. And then every new tax in 5 years, they'll have to increase it because we haven't increased it in 5 years. Listen to the floor debates, they say that all the time. I'm sure it happens in the county level, so pretty soon in the next 10 years, all sales tax will be going up. And I also want to go on record that we tried 3 times to stop the sunset last year and this year, and they all failed.
Very good. Senator Vilhauer.
Just a quick comment about this. The question raised a valid point. I don't disagree with it. It is a regressive tax. It is somewhat of a tax shift as well. And before I voted for Senate Bill 96, I got a printout from the Bureau of Finance and Management that showed the potential benefit to every county, 66 counties in the state. Every county would have seen anywhere from a 15 to 25% benefit from this. So yes, people from Clark paying some benefit to Watertown, yes, but still every county would have benefit if they were to opt into the extra sales tax from Senate Bill 96.
Anybody else want to comment on this before we move on? All right, we're good on property taxes. Appreciate that. There's a question, can you walk through the budget, the 2.4% increase? what it funds and it doesn't fund. That's the budget bill. And the information I have, the budget for fiscal 2027 will be $7.5 billion. Includes an increase of 26 full-time state government employees and a 2.4% increase from the budget that was adopted last year. Maybe Kent, we'll start with Kent and then we'll work our way down and then come back. Kent, what about the budget that was approved?
I voted for the G bill. That's what we loosely call it out there. Glenn, I'm certain, could spend hours dissecting the first question walk through the budget. He's an appropriator, does a fantastic job. My view on the budget is, out in Pierre, you have to develop trust relationships. And there's 9 senators and 9 representatives that work on the Appropriations Committee. These guys are working every day. We get Thursdays off typically. They're still out there Friday morning working on, or we get Fridays off. They're typically out there working Fridays, weekends all summer long on this. So myself, and I think I could assure you all that we can trust our appropriators. We don't have any real crazy people that are trying to do outrageously radical things. Yes, there's some wild ideas that come flying at us, but we've got good people working in the Appropriations Committee, whether it's the House Representative side or the Senate or the Joint Committee on Appropriations. So I trust that work that they're doing. They bring us their ideas. We have to vote on them. They have to have a 2/3 majority in both houses to pass. The process works.
Go ahead, Bill.
Like you said, you said 2 or 2.6% increase, $80 million more, 26 more full-time employees, and then an extra appropriations to South Dakota Public Broadcasting, which we negotiated last year, of just about under $300,000, 5 new welfare programs, and the Democrats got on the floor and said they got everything they wanted this year. That's never happened. The G bill had a record amount of no votes on it because of all the stuff that was in it this year, and it only passed by 3 votes in the Senate. We need to work on it.
And you were a no vote in the House,
Yep.
right? Okay. Stephanie, thoughts on the budget, the main overall state budget bill that passed?
First of all, I too want to echo the efforts of the Appropriations Committee and especially Senator Vilhauer. This word's used a lot, but Glenn is an example of a rock star. They work so hard and they're so diligent about it, and they are looking at this thing from every angle because they want to do the best for the state of South Dakota, for every district. And Glenn was wonderful at reporting to the rest of us in the Senate, you know, what they did, what their thoughts were, asking for our input. And so thank you, Senator Vilhauer, for your work. And I want to put that on public record. Very good, thank you. He deserves that. As far as an increase in the budget, I don't know about you, but I look at my budget every year. My budget's always going up. I can't help it. The cost of products are going up. Why shouldn't, I mean, unfortunately, the state budget has to go up as well because everybody's budget's going up, and we don't have a lot of choice on that in certain situations. Was the budget perfect in my eyes? No, but we can't sacrifice a good workable solution in pursuit of perfect. We're not going to get perfect. We are not going to get 105 yes votes on a budget. We're not going to do that because there's going to be disagreements. Could we change some things? Possibly. Could we have said no to some things? Possibly. But you have to put it all together and make it work, and I believe this will work. As far as the full-time employees, I don't want it to be misconstrued that South Dakota is frivolous and hiring just willy-nilly people. If they need a full-time employee, they probably need a full-time employee if they're asking for it. Because the money was tight this year. We didn't get a chance to say, oh yeah, we can do that. We've got all these dollars. Are you kidding me? We could only give 1.4% to to our schools, to our care providers, and our state work. We weren't giving them, 10, 15%. We would have liked to have done that. So I think the appropriators did a good job. I think the budget is workable for our state for the next year, and we'll see what we can do, next year to either cut back or maybe give additional dollars.
I'll go to Senator Vilhauer, and then I'm going to come back to you, Dylan.
It'll be one sentence. I just want to go on record that the average income in South Dakota went down 2% last year.
Very good. Would you, Senator Vilhauer, you're on the Appropriations Committee. By your definition, would this be a fiscally conservative budget?
Do you want my input or Matt has that?
I'll go to Glenn first, and then we'll come to Matt.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank the comments here and the acknowledgement in the crowd. We do our job as appropriators, not looking for accolades. But I will say a few things, and Mike, if I get too long-winded, cut me off. But just a few things. First of all, I'm going to zero in on the general fund portion of our budget. That's about $2.5 billion. That's B with a B, not an M. Billion dollars out of $7.5 total. $7.5 billion total budget, which includes federal funding, et cetera. Well, we're taking a look at the $80 million increase in our general funds. Well, yes, $80 million is definitely more than chicken feed, but most of that increase is actually mandated to us by the feds relative to increased expenditures for Medicaid coverage. We had no choice in that matter. And then something that gets blurred in this is in the work of the budget, we cut $7.1 million out of Department of Social Services because we felt like there were probably some areas where they were overestimating the utilization, primarily in the area for the Medicaid expansion. And we also cut, I believe it was $7 million out of the Department of Education budget because, again, we felt like the numbers of students across the state that would qualify for state aid for education was probably overstated by the Department of Education. So we lopped some pretty good chunks off the budget, and that allowed us to provide the 1.4% increase to the big three. Now, remember when the governor proposed his budget back in December, there was no increase provided whatsoever. We got some revenue projections about a month, 6 weeks ago that looked a little more promising, so we're able to utilize that along with some of the cuts that I just referenced to provide that 1.4%. Is it enough yet? I don't feel it is, but that was what we felt like we could live with. Now, when we start talking about the budget now within appropriations or on the Senate floor, where I start to take exceptions is when we had some appropriators that every time somebody appeared before us to present their budget, they were asked questions that were almost accusatory of departments and agencies padding their budget. And I want to give credit to the people that we have working for us at the state level. They are honest, diligent, caring, compassionate people that are trying to serve the state of South Dakota as best they can. And we start looking at budgets, we have to remember that there's people behind these numbers. And we got to look at more than just the numbers. So we try to find that right mix there of people as well as the dollars. And then we hear comments like, well, we're just becoming just exactly like Minnesota. We're becoming a welfare state. I want to remind people we've got the second lowest overall tax burden in the country compared to the other 49 states. So we are far from becoming a Minnesota. We're far from becoming a welfare state. We still are very fiscally prudent with our dollars here in the state, and I will stand by that as an appropriator.
Very good. Representative Roby, your thoughts on the budget bill?
Well, to echo Representative Roe in terms of trusting the appropriators, I think I would trust Senator Vilhauer with my kids to babysit, so of course I would trust him with the budget. But no, and honestly, this morning I was doing some research on this and trying to take, we can throw out these numbers about year over year and a certain number of FTEs, and that's pretty short term, right? Things change slowly over time, and so I did a little research on the last 25 years. And of course, a lot of our budget, 60%, 50 to 60%, a little over 60%, I guess, is federal and other funds, right? And so just looking at the general fund, if you look at inflation plus population growth, over the last 25 years, and then you look at our general fund growth over the last 25 years, the general fund growth is only slightly higher. And the reason for that is because healthcare expenses, healthcare inflation has been faster than general inflation. And so because we spent a decent chunk of our budget on healthcare, that's what accounts for that slight uptick over the last 25 years. So again, trying to take a long view, we are consistently a conservatively budgeted state. Also looked at another, we can all find stats that support our position and don't support our position, et cetera. One I found this morning, we are near the bottom of general fund spend per capita in the country, in the bottom 5 states. And so to say that we are becoming like Minnesota is just a fallacy.
Very good. We're going to start with Steph on this next question, then we'll go to Dylan and work our way back. I'm not exactly sure how to frame this question, but there was debate during the session about what the role of state government should be in economic development. Steph, can you talk a little bit about that, some of the legislation out in Pure, and what should state government's role be in driving economic development, or is that more of a private sector issue?
I think there should be a good balance with that. I don't think state government should necessarily be in competition with free market, but we need to encourage free market by the incentives. And we have programs in place right now through GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, that permits loans, low-interest loans for startups or for other businesses. We need to be able to incentivize, and sometimes that's a bad word. I know people, curse at that word, but not really. I've always likened it to, a grocery store, one grocery store. Well, encourage people to come to their store with a sale. Well, our sale in our grocery store of a state, if you want to look at it simply like that, is to, give these new businesses, and not necessarily the huge mega businesses, even the smaller ones, a chance to come in, get started. It's like giving your own children, maybe you're giving them a loan to buy their house. Maybe you're giving them a loan to buy a business. I know a lot of people in this room at this table probably had parents who helped them pay for their schooling. Understand that. The money in the state is not just from my pocket, it's from everybody's pocket. I understand that too. But that the government's role, the state's role, is to encourage that, giving tools, not necessarily free rides, but giving tools to economic developments, to the counties, so they can promote economic development in their counties. I don't necessarily like a whole blanket approach, because what's good for Cottington County, Hamlin County, Dual County, whatever, is not necessarily the best path forward for Minnehaha, for Pennington, for Harding County. We are such a diverse state that a blanket economic development program isn't always the best. But that's what we need to do, is to promote those programs to keep us open for opportunity and get those businesses here, because then they will help bring down the property taxes. They will help put kids in our schools. And so it's not, there's so many facets and assets to all of this that we have to consider.
Representative Jordan, what are your thoughts on what role state government should be in driving economic development?
I don't think that it necessarily should be the job of government to promote economic development. That's a private sector job. That's called crony capitalism. So I actually brought a resolution 6007 to encourage and support our party platform by encouraging honest economic development without government handouts. So that's my position. But I also want to circle back is that we just got told that we increased our budget by $80 million because the feds told us to, which is one reason why we need to push and recognize states' rights and our state sovereignty, and not have all these laws that dictate that we have to go along with what the federal government tells us to do.
Very good. Senator Vilhauer, your thoughts on economic development and what state government role should play there?
I want to bring it close to home. Were it not for some of the partnerships, the public-private partnerships out there, our downtown would look pretty crappy right now. the projects that were built downtown, some of those were aided, or they were aided by programs that were available at the state level. Terex, our biggest employer in town, may not be here, or probably wouldn't be here if they were not able to take advantage of some of the economic development opportunities out there. There's got to be a mix of public-private partnership on this. And we've got good people, we've got a good process in place. We've got a Board of Economic Development. We've had several members, in fact, right now we've got Joy Nelson and Mike Lucan from right here in Watertown serving in those positions. Good people that are making decisions that benefit the entire state. We are not picking winners and losers when we make decisions at the state level. We're only trying to encourage some opportunities that may not happen if there wasn't a little bit of benefit there to locating in South Dakota. And we're essentially slamming the door on economic development in this state. I wouldn't be surprised if we start going down the interstate coming into South Dakota and says we're closed for business. No offense to the governor, but I take exception when he said we're open for opportunity, because we sure are not showing it relative to how we've treated economic development opportunities the last couple of years.
Matt?
Yeah, on this topic, there's theory and reality, right? In theory, the whole world would be, we'd all be operating under a free market system. Businesses would go where they naturally would flow, et cetera, et cetera. The reality is, if we got rid of our economic development systems, our economic development programs would be unilaterally disarming. There's 49 other states in our country that are all trying to attract businesses, suck our kids out, attract them to different states, attract them to the coasts, not to mention China, other countries that are trying to suck businesses out of our country. The fact that, again, it's just a fallacy that we would say, let's get rid of all these programs and let's just hope for the best. The bottom line is other states are doing it. We have to do it in a smart way. We put some guardrails on the Future Fund this year. There are guardrails on the way that the Board of Economic Development operates. They're very tilted towards trying to emphasize in-state businesses. But there's obviously going to be opportunities to attract businesses into our state. And to Glen's point about Terex, they were going to go to Oklahoma. If we didn't put a package together that attracted them from a state, local, and city level, that would have kept them in South Dakota, we'd be down 1,000 jobs right now. So I absolutely support smart economic development.
And Kent, finally, your position on state government's role in economic development.
Over the summer, I had a chance to travel all over South Dakota. I participated in 17 meetings directly about data center development, but there were 25 or 30 of these meetings that anyone could have attended to, and hopefully some of you went. That was my introduction, baptism by fire, to economic development in South Dakota. We've got some absolute rock stars. Glen's one of them, but on the state level, we've got GOED. Bill Even is the director, the commissioner of the governor's office of economic development. This guy is crawling over shredded glass to try to bring South Dakota back into the national spotlight, create some openings here for some good development, some good jobs. Dylan said earlier that our wages went down 2%. That's not because we're adding economic development left and right. It's because we're not. We are an island. We talk about sovereignty. We got to remind ourselves we're part of 50 states here. We need to participate in the national economy in order to enjoy the benefits created by our national economy. We've got a President Trump right now who's a big fan of everything economic. We talk about the state's role in economic development. We are a low-tax state overall. We use TIFs. These guys here pretty familiar with the TIF programs. Where we're out of bounds is we're not aligned on our tax load nationwide for economic development. We've got some good plans, we've got some incentives, but at the end of the day, we're just out of alignment. We've become definitely an island in the northern plains here. Economic development is passing us by. To Matt's point, our kids are leaving. We've got Lake Area Tech, absolute little genuine gold coin here in town, but those kids are leaving. We've got Dakota State in Madison, top tier computer computer training, college, those kids are leaving. My son went to School of Mines out in Rapid City. In his graduating class, 75% of those kids got their sheepskin and bailed. They went to Montana, they went to Wyoming, they went to Georgia, they went to California, Texas, you name it. They didn't leave because they wanted to, they left because that's where the jobs are. And we need to return to that type of mentality here where we're accepting our role in maintaining our own population of our brightest and best kids. And the only way you can really do that is through building the economic base that they can grow from.
We started the conversation this morning about data centers. I'll let anyone who wants to address this tackle it. A question from the audience. They say, once construction on a data center is complete and construction workers leave, without a yearly tax, is there still a financial gain for South Dakota? Anyone want to tackle that one?
I'm sure Kent might want to jump in, but yeah. So the tax that would be that was explored to be either held off for a number of years, et cetera, was the sales tax on that high value, those chips that we all hear about. You know, if anybody's an investor, if you heard of NVIDIA, you know, they're the ones that make these high value chips that are going in these data centers, as well as other companies, of course. So the tax break is on these high value chips. They have to spend $400 to $500 million every 4 to 5 years to update these chips. Other than that, everything else would still be subject to tax. So anything else that they buy that's not included in that potential program would be subject to sales tax. The electricity they buy would generate about, I think it's $10 million a year or over 5 years.
No, per year.
$10 million a year in sales tax. And then I think the most important benefit is really in the counties that want it. Again, these folks that we've talked to, they want to be good neighbors. If you talk to anybody in Ellendale, North Dakota, you know, they got kids that are moving back home that left home a long time ago. Ellendale's been a great community partner, or the facility up there has been a great community partner. So they want to be in places that people want it. And what's great about it in the places that people want it is that it significantly reduces property taxes for everybody else in the county.
Anyone else want to swing at this one, or are we good?
Well, I'll take a swing at it. I think anybody in here who's got an IRA or participates in any type of retirement funding, you've got money in these big data center companies. Doesn't matter. We all use data, whether it's precision farming, cell phone, whatever. To Matt's point, the project in Dole County would have generated about $10 million a year in electric sales tax. That would have went to the state. The property taxes generated in Dole County would have been about $5.5 million a year. Put that in perspective, right now, the total property taxes collected in Dole County is about $3.3 million. They have a budget of around $11 million. So that budget is backfilled from the state, from sales tax collected. So if you can take that $3.5 to $4 million in Dole County, and you can add a $5.5 million revenue stream from a single entity in a county, that's important. That money then would be spilled back and be spread out statewide. The impacts, job-wise, you're looking at, to the point of, you've got 12 to 1,500 people during the construction cycle. These guys are spending their money as they earn it. I've witnessed it. I had people up in the oil field, and them guys, they'd make money hand over fist, and then by Monday morning it was all spent. It was all spent locally. But then you move on to long-term jobs. The impact there. Dole County's average wage is about $40,000. The Applied Digital project would have brought in 200 plus full-time jobs with an average pay of $65,000. Plus, these are 200 new jobs completely on a whole cloth. This is not a competitor that's just replacing a portion of a market. This is an entirely new market for employment. And wage competition helps the wage earner. I can witness that 100%, because when I had 25 trucks on the road, my competition wasn't, if Matt had trucks, my competition wasn't Matt. My competition was the market. And if you can add if you can add 200 pieces to a market of 1,200 employees in a dual county, there's going to be winners, and it's going to be everyone.
Very good. Here's a audience question.
Mike, can I weigh in just quickly on this? You know, it's ironic. Every question that either you've asked, Mike, or the audience has asked has either talked about property taxes, economic development / data centers, or revenue in general for the state. Every one of these questions. What we have to realize is they are all interrelated. And I said this several times. I was part of that property tax task force this past summer. I said it several times, and I think I was talking to deaf ears most of the time when I said it. But economic development is the engine that drives all this. We get serious about economic development in this state. We're going to grow the property tax base, which is going to help everybody, and we're going to generate sales tax revenue, which helps the state and the cities. So we have to realize that these are all interrelated. We can't pick and choose one versus the other.
Very good. Here's a question from the audience specifically for Dylan. You voted to ban soda for SNAP recipients. The argument was from you that you drink Mountain Dew but don't ask taxpayers to pay for it, but your legislative salary at $78 per diem is my tax money, so should we pass legislation that bans soda for you?
If they want to.
Are you on SNAP benefits?
No.
Then it's an irrelevant question, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Appropriators question, and I think the question reads, why are our schools and state employees not part of the big three? Why are they not getting some of this increase? But they are part of the big three, right?
Yep.
Medicaid providers, state government employees.
And schools.
And schools. Okay, that takes care of that one. Crypto and AI guidelines. The executive order to restrict state/local ethics and regulation of AI. Is that something you're for or against? And maybe Glenn, we'll start with you and work our way down. I don't know anything about that one.
You know, you're talking to the oldest guy up here, I guess. And when it comes to AI, I am so illiterate and ignorant about it. So I tell you, I don't like it, but I also realize that it's with us. There's no denying it. And so we've got to take advantage of it. I think it does need some regulation and some oversight. I think there's a couple different bills that come to mind that we attempt to do that. So whether we like it or not, it is with us. We're going to have to try to deal with it as best we can.
Matt?
Thanks. Yeah, I don't think it's either or. I mean, I know President Trump is clearly a big fan of crypto, clearly pushing artificial intelligence for national security reasons. And so, you know, there's the Commerce Clause, which, you know, prevents states from doing certain things that impede on the flow of commerce between states. And so there's going to be certain things that are going to be more appropriate for the federal government to regulate on this space. And there's also going to be things that I think it's appropriate for states to regulate in certain ways. And so I don't think it's either or.
Very good. Yeah?
The crypto thing does bother me some. I don't fully understand it. Does it need regulation? I don't know that the people who want to regulate it understand it either. There's obviously people have developed, there's a role for this type of currency out there. Regarding AI, again, I use it quite a bit. And it's going to replace my work someday, same as it will probably Glenn's and maybe even Matt's.
Well, that's disappointing.
Guys. But,
I'm retired.
Okay. Where we're going to see it first, early adopters, is the highly technical type of jobs where you've got a knowledge set that you need to refer to, and these things are absolute champions at that. If I can access the entire knowledge base of humanity in 5 seconds or less through the use of an AI agent, I'm going to use it. I mean, it's no different than using a calculator or a phone. I mean, think about human transformation. We started out talking with each other. The further away you were, the louder you talked. Well, then we came up with phones and radios, and now we're talking on cell phones. And humanity's going to march forward, whether we want to be part of it or not. The other thing I will say, the market tends to steer us where we want to go. And when we're talking about regulation, we've got no fewer than 5 viewpoints up here. The way we're going to regulate this stuff, if we choose to go that way, is going to be through negotiation and an agreement amongst parties. So I don't know if there's an answer on how we regulate this stuff. I think a light touch, if my input is counted, I would say it will be as a light touch, because we benefit every day from these things. We're all pretty healthy in this room, and it's not because we didn't accept technology as it moved forward. So that's just an important tool that humanity has to use, and to reject it would be at our own peril.
Stephanie?
I echo the thoughts of my colleagues here. I am, I'm not going to say ignorant on cryptocurrency. I continue to ask, okay, what is this all about? And I ask the people who would know that. I don't go to Facebook and put that out as a general question. So there's a lot of studying that I have to do with cryptocurrency. As far as AI is concerned, there were people 70 years ago that didn't want electricity. We don't need electricity. We're okay with electricity. We don't need it. I don't need electricity in my barn. Well, now there's not a barn to be had that doesn't have electricity in it. And if you're a livestock producer, you probably got cameras in your barn watching your calves being born when you can stay in the house. Or I know there were a couple legislators out in Pierre who were watching their calves being born, and they're sitting in Pierre, and their barns are back, 200 miles away. And so we need to have some regulations in place. Again, a light touch. Let's not come down. AI is going to be used for good things. The medical profession right now is a godsend to some of those, but there are nefarious ways to use AI, so we have to find a happy medium.
Dylan?
Yeah, thank you for the question. To be honest, I have friends that love crypto and friends that hate crypto. I'm semi-confused on what it is, and I wouldn't even know how to regulate it if we wanted to, but generally speaking, I am against regulating it. And AI is a tool. You can use it for good or bad. I use it to make funny photos. Other people use it to write stuff. It's a tool. It all depends on what you use it for. So I'm not a big fan of big regulations on it.
All right, very good. I have a question for the audience here as we're going to start wrapping it up. If you have a child or a grandchild in school, raise your hand. Quite a few of them. A lot of debate about whether or not kids should have to turn in their cell phone when they get to school during the school day. It can be a distraction. Other people say that's not for the state legislature to decide. That's why we have local school boards. In fact, Governor Roden said that. Local control. Dylan, you said something interesting when there was testimony on the bill about why kids should have a cell phone in the classroom. Talk about that if you would.
Oh yeah, during COVID, it didn't happen as much in South Dakota, but it did happen all over the country. And if you watch Fox News or CNN, you saw it. A lot of all over the country, the libs of TikTok's accounts, they recorded. There's a lot of indoctrination and gender ideology going on in schools, and the way that got exposed so we could get a handle on it is because students saw what was wrong and recorded it. So I'm not saying phones should be a distraction, but I also think it's tied into why they want to, all these states are trying to ban them a couple years later. So I think we need to be very cautious, and that's one of the main reasons why I was against that bill. And I'm glad that it died on the floor.
It should be local control then?
Yep.
Okay. Glenn, your thoughts on that? State intervention versus local school board?
You had to ask this question, didn't you?
Sorry.
I voted against it. And I'm looking at one of our city council members sitting there. Doug Allen writes a very good, poignant column every week for the Current. And he wrote a very good column about that just here within the last week or so. I tell you what, I hate cell phones. I hate them with a passion. But I tell you what, to me, it still boils down to local control versus state control. In talking to our own local administration, they have a very good policy in place already. And I think that's pretty well statewide, that most school districts already have something in place to deal with this. So to me as a state legislator, I felt like I had no business, or we have no business telling the schools what they should or should not be doing relative to some that they've already addressed at the local level.
Matt, you got a number of kids. What do you think about this one?
Yeah. Glen's gonna watch them this weekend. No,
The rock star.
yeah. This was a tough vote. The local control versus state law issue on this was just stark. The evidence, the data that shows how bad these devices can be, especially for minds that are still developing. Granted, we can't control what goes on in people's homes, and so this is really just during the school day. It's pretty overwhelming. I mean, I think one of the stats that was stated on the floor is it takes, and I can attest to this. I mean, I think that's why people start to put on their notification silencer when they're trying to do something important. Is it takes like 20 minutes for you to refocus after you get a ding on your phone. And so some of these things that are just overwhelmingly negative about cell phones, I bought into, and I think it deserves a state law. But on this bill, I actually voted no. I think it didn't quite go. The way it was written only allowed school districts to have a say in what the penalties were. It didn't really kind of say, hey, you need to have a policy and it should kind of do X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, you guys, school boards, you figure it out. And so I just didn't like the way that was worded, and so I did vote no. I don't think it left enough discretion to the locals to figure out the best way to do it in their schools.
All right, we'll go to Kent as he's scrolling on his cell phone.
You're gonna have to give me 20 minutes to refocus here. I'm just looking at the bill. It says I voted yay.
Was that during a 20-minute distraction?
It could have been. It could have been. And to Glen's point, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of these things, but they've become so much of a part of our lives that we just have to kind of accept them. I encourage you all to not go and look at any recording of the House of Representatives, because at any given point, probably either Matt, I, or Dylan are looking at our cell phone. Unfortunately, that's just reality. I supported it. Had some good friends out there within the education community and parents of younger children like Matt that thought this would be a good thing to give the school boards this tool. Now, are we going to send a representative around to check every single classroom, every single child? That's unlikely. But I think my attraction to it was it gave the school boards a little more authority if they wanted to implement some sort of a cell phone ban. So that's why I supported it. Again, I think there's 5 of us here at any given time. One of the 5 of us was probably on her cell phone during session.
Senator Sauder used to be a school teacher,
So that makes me the most qualified up here to make this decision. No, I voted against this simply because I did not disagree about what the distractions are according with the cell phone for children and adults. You're right, we all have our phones and we're all looking at them for this reason or that reason. I voted against this ban because 95% of the schools across the state already have something in policy. This is a local issue. And so what would be good for the Watertown School District may not be the best for Florence, may not be the best for Hamlin, may not be the best for Rapid City. And speaking of Rapid City and other schools, and I'm not well versed with the Watertown policy, but this bill said from bell to bell. What does that mean for schools who have an open campus, that kids can leave campus at noon from bell to bell? You're saying then that technically they can't have their phone when they go downtown to get something to eat or run home for lunch. That wording itself caused me pause. And so I voted against it because I trust my school boards, because I trust my teachers, talking to the instructors and the administration just in my district alone. They said, we've got what works going on right now. So it's good enough for me, so I voted no against this bill.
We went a little bit over time. Here's my last question. We'll start with you, Stephanie, since you've got the microphone there. I want, since we're on the topic of schools, I want each of you to give what you think is the letter grade A, B, C, D, F, hopefully no Fs, on the work of the legislative session this year and why you would give it that grade. What was maybe good or bad about it, or maybe a missed opportunity? You're grading the legislature's work, Stephanie. What grade would you give it?
Grading on the fly, oh gosh. You know, and this is, you know, as a collective issue or a collective group, I guess I'd have to give us a B-. We weren't failing. There's a lot of things we could have done better. I'd give it a B- because of some of the bills that were brought that were unnecessary or unfair. You know, I'm gonna upgrade that to a B+. Let's just go average B. But no, we could have done much better, but we could have done much worse, and I hope next year we can increase that to at least a B+, if not A-.
All right, we'll give it a B. Dylan?
Yeah, I agree with Stephanie on the grading, but I'm gonna go with the C for the same reasons.
All right, very good. Glenn, the rock star.
Good question. I would probably say a B to a B-. I felt like, did we accomplish a whole lot? Maybe not some of the areas I would have liked to see in it, but in my opinion, we played a lot of good defense out there. What I mean by that is there were 650 bills roughly introduced, and only about 200 or maybe less than 200 have made it to the governor's desk. A lot of the bills were solutions looking for problems, in my opinion. So I felt like from the standpoint of keeping a lot of that at bay, I felt like we were fairly successful. So I would give it a B.
I believe as of late this week, Governor Roden had signed 153 bills into law. That was the number. Matt?
Yeah, I think I'd go with B+, something like that. For a similar reason as Glenn, I mean, I was talking to Mike before the Cracker Barrel here, and I think the ratio of bills that become law and bills that were filed, I'm guessing will be near a historical low, because it was a historically near the historical high number of bills introduced, and we killed a lot of bills. We were kind of joking that we called the House floor Smithfield West. We were the killing floor. But anyway, so we killed a lot of bad ideas. I'm glad we got something done for property taxes to move us past that discussion. I think I was disappointed that my funding bill for Lake Area Tech's new trade center was not able to get across the finish line. And so there's certainly some mixed emotion, but I think in the B range would be all right.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give us an A++ on bill volume. I mean, come on, we need a, Alan Ovstrop up in Aberdeen thinks we all should get a raise because of the work we do. That's a little jab at Al, if any of you know him. I'd give us a B on performance. I think overall, though, we could probably do much better on our lightening the touch of government through incentivizing businesses to locate here, because we're dealing with a pretty static state. I just think we need to open the doors again and then create a welcoming environment for everyone.
Very good. Folks settled on it. We went a little bit over time here. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have a specific question for one of the legislators, if they have time, I'm sure they'll stick around.
No way! That's great!